We're the Huge Movie Fanatics, and we're here to give you the end of the Evil Dead saga, the final movie, Army of Darkness, or technically Bruce Campbell versus Army of Darkness.
Oh yeah, or if Sam Raimi had his way.
The Medieval Dead, which is the best title. What could have been.
I know.
This movie, if Evil Dead 1 showcased how Sam Raimi knows how to make a movie, Evil Dead 2 showcases how he maintained his career. This movie showcases why he became a comic book filmmaker, because this movie is shot like a comic book should be. It's told like a comic book should be, and the hero is very much a comic book hero.
Yeah.
I think Army of Darkness is insanely entertaining. Oddly enough, though, I'm a fan of the theatrical cut. I'm not a huge fan of the director's cut. I like the director's cut, and I'd give that one about 3 stars. But the theatrical cut is just so fantastic. Especially that closing scene in Estmart is one of my favorite scenes.
Oh yeah. So here he makes a scene based on what, studio?
Yeah,
interference, which turns out to be pretty goddamn great.
Yeah, what a great closing scene. The whole "Hail to the King, baby," and how great was that? And ma'am, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the store. That's my favorite line.
Yeah, and look at the ending as they would have liked it.
It was funny.
It's good.
It's good. It's funny.
It's
probably more correct for the material, but it's not as great of an ending. I think it would have been a disappointing ending to go out on, whereas this one sort of left you with man, that was great. I want to see it again. Let's watch all of them in a row.
You can see what he does.
Yeah, pretty much. Bruce Campbell really just. Wow, he was fabulous in this one. Being such a jerk, which was so fabulous. He's such a twat, and
why is he a jerk though by this one? I don't understand that.
He kind of was a little bit in all of them, but in this one, I don't know, they just decided to make him a jerk. I have no idea why, but he does it so perfectly that I was fine with that. Whatever, I'll go with it. And maybe it was just because he was getting cocky because he was so good at killing these things, so give this guy a little bit of cocky and he'll be a cock. But, I think this is a great movie. It's not... the Evil Dead movies are very weird, because the first one is probably the worst movie in terms of telling a story, but cinematically is the best.
Yeah.
The second one is the best movie in terms of being able to tell a story, but cinematically is kind of the weakest. Army of Darkness is sort of along the lines of being able to tell a decent story, and showcases how good he had gotten, Sam Raimi had gotten by this point to be being a filmmaker, but it's not quite as good as it's certainly not as good as the first one, and it's about as good as the second one. I'd just nudge it up a little bit more just for the entertainment value of seeing Ash be cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this one 3.5. Has just great iconic lines that people repeat constantly. It has great iconic hero. It's a great movie.
Cool. I saw, of course, I was a fan of Evil Dead, since the late 80s. So I was lucky enough to see Army of Darkness in the theater, and it's a couple 5-day theatrical run or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And I tell you, because all my friends, we all saw it. My mom brought us to see it, and we were so when it opened up in that early 90s, Universal, hugely high-tech cinematography of the recreation of the beginning. We were like,
the opening scene is just
and the red chainsaw. I haven't seen it for a while, but the push of the red chainsaw or whatever imagery was in that, we were like, oh my god, and recreating the first one again, or
first and second one.
Oh yeah, right, first and second one, and we were just like, oh god, oh, did you see that? And then he got transported, and definitely has that. Out of all 3 of them, the studio look. As far as the colors,
it's glossy.
It's glossy, and I completely ate it up at the time.
I think it still kind of works because of that. It's sort of an odd. This series starts off kind of crappy looking in the modern setting, The second one gets a little bit better looking after shit's happened in the first one, and then the third one, when it goes back in time, and traditionally filmmakers would want to try and make it look older,
Boring.
deteriorated, and boring.
Yeah.
Like it's the reverse of the natural process, which I think kind of works really well for the franchise if you watch them back to back.
Yeah.
But
So one thing I liked at the time was because the character to a teenager is so cool.
Yeah.
One thing I liked at the time was the cockiness, and I didn't understand at the time. Looking back on it, it's like, why the hell is he so cocky? And I think that it was almost like, okay, we're making Evil Dead 3. We know people like these movies, so we're gonna just go over the top. And in retrospect, to me, looking back on it, it kind of, when you compare, I don't even go like 1, 2, 3. I compare like 3 to 1, and it's just like, Jesus, look what's happened. And I gotta admit, in retrospect, I don't necessarily love the cockiness. I think that the whole Bruce Campbell thing by that point has just gotten to the point where, okay, you're Bruce Campbell, we get it, you're great, So I just thought that it was weird because it was like, Universal renamed the movie Army of Darkness kind of like it was just like, they knew that the majority of people who are going to see it or aren't even going to know that Evil Dead 1 and 2 exist. So it was a weird situation in a way. It's like, why do a third movie if, the studio that's doing it is kind of almost in a way denying the fact that it's a third movie.
Yeah.
It's a weird in that aspect. And I think you're right. I mean, they do change so much, but one thing that I loved and still do is that, Sam Raimi's cinematic style, the more money he got, the more he was able to do amazing stuff. Because back in the day when that came out on tape and we were watching, I was like, this is like the pinnacle of like action movie making as far as like shooting an arrow and then having that arrow shot with the background flying by and all that kind of Sam Raimi stuff I completely ate up as a teenager, and still it is very cool.
I mean, you totally see why he was given Spider-Man and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
Like,
and one thing, go ahead.
You give the man money and he can make, he prints gold with his film. Like, just if you mute his stuff and just care to look at it visually, like everything he does is printing gold.
That's one thing that I actually wanted to bring up is that Darkman happened in between Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. And Darkman, we're not going to go into it, but was basically a movie. I think it did better in the theater than they were thinking it was going to because it was so entertaining. And even my dad, would, every now and then, whenever a stuffed animal thing would pop up, would say, "Take the fucking elephant." He wouldn't say it. He'd say, he'd take the damn rabbit, or he'd say something like that, but meaning that line from Darkman. So I'm conflicted about Army of Darkness being an old, closed-minded adult now, and I'm gonna have to go 2 1/2 stars because it's such a by the time you get to the third one, it's so, I don't know, as an adult, it's too comedic or something for me. I love the cinematic. I love how I do like how it looks and the colors and everything and that whole Universal. I mean, it looks great, but Ash it's so, for me, for my money, it's just like over the top humor, like Kato, Verada.
Oh, that's my favorite scene.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. As much as I love horror, I think at the end of the day I like comedy just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And to blend the two is just great.
Oh well, blending.
So
I mean,
this one it's a
that
farce. It's a comedy in a horror movie setting, and I think that's what makes it so just fabulous to me. And it still kind of had that that was the time where you were getting Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Bram Stoker's Dracula coming out that had these great set pieces.
Yeah.
And they were great set pieces, but Sam Raimi kind of did it better a little bit in Army of Darkness, having the old castles and stuff like that on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
And same colors and everything, there's just something that he knew he knows how to film that kind of world and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what he has an eye for. Now, if you give him a romantic comedy like For Love of the Game, he's not as quite as good. But
It's just- yeah, why he even did things like that. But I mean, obviously, you want to try to
yeah,
level out your whatever, your name or
he
whatever.
can show that he can do everything.
Yeah.
He's just better at some other things.
So yeah, in retrospect, when I look at Army of Darkness compared to the other two, it's almost like the first two are in together, and then like Army of Darkness for me is like over here, because the first two are undeniably like very low budget, and it's like the second one or the third one's like, you know, Universal. It's still low budget, but there's elements I like. I love what he does with the camera and stuff. But the character of Ash, by the time you get to Army of Darkness, for me, in retrospect, is goofy and over the top. So 2.5 for Nate for Army of Darkness, and what?
3.5 for
3.5 for Matt.
Teetering on 4, but 3.5.
Yep. Is that about it?
That's it. That's Army of Darkness.
And we've done a little thing about our thoughts on the Evil Dead
The
remake.
Evil Dead
so-
remake, we'll put possibly a link here so that you can click to that and see
All right, I'll put a link
down below.
right there
Yes.
to our review of, well, not a review, our idea, our
Our
thoughts,
thoughts of the
Evil Dead remake,
Evil Dead remake,
which is as close to Evil Dead 4
as we're gonna get probably, but that's fine. You know what? I'm fine with the 3 that they did.
No, I mean, you know, the 3 that there are fine, and you know, the first one's on Blu-ray now. Watch it over and over.
Yeah.
That's-
All of them are on Blu-ray now, actually.
All of them are on Blu-ray now. Watch the first one over and over.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. So you guys have a great one.
Peace.
And be dead by dawn.
Groovy.
Groovy.